Hello and welcome to this podcast today with myself, Bettool Jabur, and joining me today all the way from Ireland are both Adam and Maria. Thank you very much for joining me on this podcast today, Adam and Maria. How are you doing?
Good.
Great. Very excited to be on this podcast.
Yes, thanks for having us.
I think I'm more excited to have you on the podcast, to be honest. The topic range that we're going to be going through today is, varying. We're going to be talking about AutoCAD, Revit, we're going to be talking about AI and even films and how AI has been affected by the way that films, maybe.
Look, keeping us on track.
Got to be a mishmash of everything.
Absolutely. So this podcast is going to be a mishmash of everything. We're talking about AutoCAD, Revit, we're talking about Vault, we're talking about BIM 360, ACC, and AI, and how the film industry has affected our technology industry at the moment. So let's start off with yourself, Adam. Tell us a bit more about yourself and what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, I suppose just to give my quick background, I have 10 years working in pharmaceutical in a design office, or a decade, I should say. I've been recommended to say a decade instead of 10 years. Anyway, yeah, so I've worked for the decade in pharmaceutical. I worked in a design office. We used, I suppose from the perspective of Autodesk products, we used a lot of 3D modeling tools, some of the older kind of precursors to MEP products. So yeah, we did a lot of design work. We used Navisworks for our federated kind of centralized models. And then we implemented Vault as well, because in the pharmaceutical, we're in a kind of a regulated environment. So every file had to have its own revision control and traceability and approval processes and so on. So that's where I got involved in Vault. So yeah, my job title is AEC, but I also do largely Vault implementations, which is interesting because Autodesk and most people kind of see Vault as a manufacturing product. And I suppose that kind of will lead into one of our topics for today, which is the overlap between AEC and MFG. But yeah, I've been with Symetri now, previously ProCAD. So ProCAD was the Irish office that got acquired by Symetri, and then we became Symetri Ireland. So I'm with Symetri Ireland and ProCAD now for about 5.5 years, implementing Vault, but also working with some of the 3D modelling softwares, specifically Plant 3D. I did a Plant 3D training course in Ireland as well. So yeah, that's just kind of a quick intro, maybe a long intro, but yeah.
Tell me, is there anything you haven't touched? You've been to AEC, you're talking about Vault, you're talking about, helping out clients left, right.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's true. I mean, Autodesk have the opinion that you're either manufacturing or you're AEC, which is architecture, construction, engineering kind of, but in my opinion, you're neither. Like, it's a grey slider, it's not a black and white, it's not a toggle switch, you're not one or the other, you're a bit of one and a bit of the other in almost every case. So
absolutely. I think you get that rounded experience, you get that understanding of where that information is going to go, whether you're an architect, engineer, you're in the construction industry, whether you're manufacturing, we still need to produce the items. Just because it's designed by a designer in the AEC industry doesn't mean that manufacturing are not going to be, utilising that product or going ahead and creating that product for you.
Yeah, a simple way of putting it is every component used in the AEC industry is manufactured. So, they're one and the same.
Absolutely. Thanks for that introduction, Adam.
No problem.
And Maria, if you would like to just tell us, what are you doing at the moment and how did you come to do what you are doing?
Okay, well, my intro is a lot shorter than that. So I qualified interior architecture, about 12 years ago now. So when
more than a decade ago,
yes, yeah,
let's go along with Adam's terminology.
When I came home, it was 2012 and there were just no jobs. So I worked for an estate agent for about 7 years, and then I kind of knew I wanted to get back into this line of work, but I just didn't know how. So I actually started looking in doing Revit courses, and I found the course in ProCAD, and I saw they were hiring at the same time. So I chanced my arm and I applied for the job at the same time I applied for the course. And it just for experience, if nothing else. I really didn't expect to get the job, but for some reason they gave me a chance. And Yeah, so that was 4.5 years ago now. And so it's mainly, so I'm an AEC technical specialist now, and kind of specialising in mostly Revit, AutoCAD, some of the other AEC software, and ACC and BIM 360. So that's kind of that's our main focus, I suppose, is helping those customers with the implementation, with support, onboarding, things like that, because it's just growing and growing, especially since the pandemic and the need for collaboration for people remotely working and cloud storage. So that's really kind of on the rise now. So yeah, that's it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, both Adam and Maria. It's great to see the different kind of packages that you tend to kind of gravitate towards, So Maria, you're talking about Revit, but also there's BIM 360 and ACC in there, because you do need to have that collaborative environment in order to work within Revit effectively, if you like.
Define ourselves based on the products we utilize or implement. When we get on these calls with each other, we just start listing the products we work with. We probably shouldn't lean in that direction, but yeah.
Yeah.
Like even, like you were, Adam, were talking about kind of, going between the two. Like I've worked with Inventor. I still use Vault now, obviously not to the extent, but depending on different projects that we do, there is a need for us to use other software that we may not, specialize in. And I think like that's the great thing about this job, is that you're kind of forced to work with, other software. So like I wouldn't class myself as MFG, but I have used the software, that kind of way. So it's great. Like it's great.
Yeah. And I suppose knowing what happens in Vault and understanding that side of data management helps you with the ACC and BIM 360 side as well. For the clients who are coming across or coming over or establishing some new techniques or some, they might have a new brief, so they have to move across into such cloud platforms. That gives you a better rounded understanding of how, you can implement that moving forward for certain customers as well.
I was going to say, like when you're talking to a customer, having that knowledge of Vault, having that knowledge of ACC and BIM 360, depending on what they want, you could easily say, well, like maybe it's Vault you're looking for then, because I think it's important to have that knowledge, even if you're not gearing them towards AEC software, just, knowing that maybe MFG might sort them out.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk a bit more about data management then. So we've touched on it slightly with talking about Vault, but Adam, tell me a bit more about data management. What is it and what have you done within that area?
Yeah, I suppose, again, like I said, I started in a pharmaceutical where we used Vault to manage our CAD files, but we also built a database in there. We were producing checklists from Vault. We were retaining not just our design and CAD data, but also other data like standard operating procedures and manuals and so on. It's largely around managing files, but not just files, also metadata. So metadata is properties information, like stuff like bill of materials in the manufacturing industry, or even in other industries, it's just a record or a traceability on changes that are made, whether it's change orders or work orders, or it's always just kind of data, stuff that you can interrogate and gain information from later. I suppose we implemented Vault, many years ago before even ACC existed, or BIM 360, its predecessor. Those being the cloud-based kind of data management platforms. Vault is server-based, it's local. You install it on your local network. You build a server for your Vault, and that's where your file store and database goes. But since I've joined Symetri, I've had to learn how both work, because you never really know when you're talking to a customer or a potential customer which direction they're leaning in. Obviously, kind of the future of the AEC industry has seen people using the construction cloud as kind of a collaborative workflow environment. And one of our biggest customers is actually an AEC customer that uses construction cloud for their live active projects. So when they're working on a building or a data center or whatever, you've multiple different disciplines and different departments, or even people from different companies working on a central platform in the cloud that they can all access from different locations. There could be a guy on site using an iPad literally to access these drawings. in the field, as they say, you know, looking at the work as it's being carried out. And that very same customer takes all of that information and pulls it down into Vault as an archive platform at the end of those projects. And they still use it for kind of revision control and approval processes within their internal office environment. But it's just, you know, it's good to have these data management applications, and just knowing that both are an option. You know, not everyone may want both. This particular company has quite a number of users in quite a number of different locations, some even outsourced, you know, from different countries. Again, that's what we're seeing now with a lot of our customers. They have a CAD operator on the other side of the world looking to get access to their current, whatever platform they're currently using. So that's where we consult. That's what we do. You know, we consult, we assist with the implementations, we do the training. And we just, throughout the course of some of these projects, we actually assist, like, depending on what the user requirement is. That's what we do. That's what we do in Symetri, I guess. Or at least that's what I do.
Absolutely. But would you say that there's, you know, with Vault, I feel as though, you know, you're in control of that data. You've got that data on premise, like you say, with the server and everything like that. But would you say that there's any concerns with the way that you do manage data within such a platform, or with having double platforms, with taking that information, collaborating on ACC, but having Vault still as a data collaborative platform? Is there any concerns there?
I mean, there's obviously concerns. Obviously the main goal is to have good data, and it's hard for us to really assist with that, because what you really need is good designers with discipline and standard operating procedures, and making sure they're following workflows as they're laid out in these procedures. But I suppose what we do find is that mostly when we implement Vault, even in, say, a manufacturing environment with just, say, 2 or 3 CAD users that are working on 3D modeling in Inventor, and then a bunch of guys out on the shop floor that are actually manufacturing components, we find that when we implement Vault, we show them how to use it, we show them the benefits of it, the ability to kind of search and retrieve historical data, the traceability and trackability of all the changes, the fact that Vault always keeps links between files. So if you move a file, it doesn't break the link, it repairs the link as you go, that kind of stuff. What we find is most of those customers, when we talk to them a year later, they say, we should have implemented Vault the day we built our company, the day we started our company, because every design we've done since we put this data management platform in place is actually quite very easy to interrogate, very easy to investigate. But everything we did before that, you've situations where there's guys with drawings on a local user's PC and another bunch of drawings on a plug-in hard drive. And
well, we might considering the bit of technical debt, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, how do you get rid of that technical debt, what has been started from day one? Or how do you manage it? You know, you're not going to just leave it messy somewhere in a corner, because it's always going to be playing on your mind. Like you say, you need that checklist almost when you first start a company. Right, Vault, check. Next, server, check. Yeah. Oh, do you have a PC? Check. You know, it's almost like you need that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true.
Maria, would you say that, you know, the ACC side and Min360 side, that you're experiencing the same things? You know, people are saying, well, where was this platform years ago when I needed to collaborate? Or, you know, are people migrating their data quite a lot into the platform and looking to see what to do with their data side of things as well?
Absolutely. Like I said, you know, I think the pandemic really pushed things along in terms of the cloud platform. But you know, previously they had their own setup within their offices on a server, and you know that kind of worked for so long. You know, within offices, and people are still working like that, and it works for them, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But obviously, you have, you know, your larger projects with multiple disciplines, and you know, just like Adam said, with like traceability and trackability. Within a project, you know, you have, let's say, take build, for example, Autodesk build. You have specific workflows within that, so that there's no lost information. So that like there was one recently where they had, I won't name anyone, but they were working on the wrong set of drawings, and they went ahead and, you know, built a certain amount, and they had to just disassemble everything, and like it causes delays and there's huge costs in that as well. So I suppose like this is eliminating all of that, or, aims to eliminate all of that. But I suppose it really just depends on the offices. It depends on the size of the business. It depends on the discipline, So, but really, I mean, like there's no, I think like once you go kind of cloud-based, you really don't go back from that. Like, because, when customers go that way, they instantly see the benefits of it, and no more, like Adam said, we should have been using this from day one. There's more and more joining. Yeah.
Absolutely. Would you say then the other concern, so we've got one concern of technical debt almost, we've got all of these files, we've got all this information that hasn't been transported across, or now we've got scattered data, some in one location, some in another. Would you say that, this has taken up a lot of space, especially I think with your client, Adam? Previously you mentioned to me, you've got a client that has got a lot of information, a lot of data. How are they going to be placing that information, properly within their system? Do we have enough space? Is there enough space in the world for all of this data?
Yeah, well, it's true. Again, we deal with a lot of different customers out there, but a lot of people kind of come looking for a data management platform, but also expect us to have some kind of magic wand that we can just wave and it's going to gather all this data from various different PCs and hard drives and, just consolidate it all and order it and structure it for them. Like, that's kind of fantasy land, In reality, what we do have is there's a lot of tools that come with the likes of Vault, and we have a lot of custom bespoke tools ourselves where if there is an existing database of all these files, or if there is a pretty large folder structure that's well consolidated, like we can bring that stuff into Vault, but we can also scan it and produce a list of broken links within that CAD data set. Or there's been situations where people have wanted files brought into Vault or into a data management platform from another location, and we may have had to have brought the revision numbers or the file history from other platforms and so on as well. So like, yeah, I know there's a lot you can do in terms of getting historical data better, and you can kind of teach the user how to, get it better. But in general, what's often recommended is something kind of considered a blank slate implementation, whereby you draw a line in the sand. Everything that you work on from this day forward goes into the Vault or whatever data management platform you're working with. And, some of those users, as they go to modify existing files, they'll tidy them up and bring them in and make sure they're applied to the correct folder structure and so on. So at least you're kind of training the user to start working correctly going forward. And again, like I said, we talk to these customers a year later or 10 years later, and you see terabytes of data that's just well structured, it's well backed up. It's, our biggest issue now is on the far end is dealing with migrating and keeping intact much larger databases of files and data that, have been built on and expanded upon for the last 10 or more years. So yeah, again, like there's plenty of variety in the challenges we face, but yeah, we do our best to recommend, and we do our best to kind of give people the tools and the knowledge and consult with our users in terms of how to bring data. But again, it's always worth asking, do you really need all of this? What don't you need from what you have historically? Because sometimes the customer just hasn't even considered that maybe we could have, just archive some of this stuff. If we need it, we can take it back out, but, not worry about tidying it up or fixing broken links or having so long as it's just archived and it's stored somewhere, we still have it. It's just, maybe not in the structure that they're planning to use going forward. But again, it varies from project to project, from customer to customer. Every project presents a new challenge, and it's always something new and different and interesting. So
yeah.
So, on that, Adam, as well, sorry, I was just going to say with the ECC platform and BIM 360 platform, it's the very same, because you have, I suppose like you have kind of standard workflows, but you have a certain amount of customization within those as well. And like when we sell the license to the software, like it's just as important for us for implementation and for onboarding and making sure that they're using it the best way they can, because like you don't want the scenario where you go back in like 3 months, 6 months and they're not using half of it, because, you know, like we know what can be done with the software and we want them to use it the same way. And then, you know, like when you have a contractor and they're bringing their subcontractors onto the platform, we want them to be using it, because like ultimately you want a seamless project. And I know, you know, with a lot of this, it's only as good as the information you put into it. And, you know, I suppose we're kind of seeing more and more customers wanting to be able to analyse the data the best way they can. So you're talking about Power BI and like that, you know, when you're inputting all of that information, you want to be able to analyse it at the end of the day, at the end of the week, whenever it is. So like it's just as important for us, for them to be using it the best way they can.
What I take away from this first part of the podcast is that, you know, we've got different channels depending on what you want to have. It's almost like being in a sweet shop for a client. You know, what do you want? What do you want to get out of it? How much money do you have to spend on it? You know, how much data do you have? Are you looking to do this worldwide? Is it just localized? And, you know, like you say, it's the amount of information or the data that you put into it is what you will get out of it. So again, training and implementation on how to do that will allow you to kind of bring out and nurture basically the data that you're going to be getting out of this model or this database. Yeah.
Yeah. And like there's nothing more satisfying than, you know, talking to a customer and them being really happy, you know, like, because like ultimately that's what we do. We're problem solvers, you know.
Yeah.
We find the best solution for the customer, the best workflows that work for them. So like it's great. It feels great for us when it works for them.
The heroes of the construction industry. And built environment. I love it. Brilliant. Okay, so this takes us on to collaborating together. So you mentioned about the fine line between AEC and MFG. Do you have a collaboration project that you've worked on together where, you know, you've had to really kind of fight fires and understand the other industry a bit more to tell them, well, you know, this is the way that it's done this way and this is how we can now collaborate and bring our models across into your software and things like that? Did you ever have to kind of fight fires together and collaborate when you cross those borders?
Yeah, certainly. I suppose like there are plenty of examples similar to what you just described where customers using Vault with the construction cloud, and there is a function there called scheduled sync. I don't know if you're familiar with it, where you can actually have files syncing between both platforms. We've a handful of customers that use that functionality. On the manufacturing side, we have people using that with Fusion as well, the Fusion team kind of platform. Another example I kind of thought of was it's Plant 3D with the construction cloud. So again, like I mentioned at the start, most of what I do is Vault since I started with Symetri Ireland. But I do have a background in history in pharmaceutical, and I did have to learn. I was using Plant 3D. I've been using Plant 3D for a number of years now as well. That's AutoCAD Plant 3D. It's a 3D package for drawing pipes, routing pipes, and so on. Typically used in pharmaceutical or any kind of process kind of industries, food and drug and oil and gas and those. But I had to learn how to use the construction cloud in conjunction with Plant 3D, because you can put Plant 3D projects into the ACC platform with BIM Collaborate, which I've done with Maria with one or two customers in the past as well. And then just, so again, it's you know, I'm going to kind of leading into products that I'm less familiar with, because again, I spend most of my time with Vault, and I spent a lot of time in my history with in my previous role working as part of that Vault implementation. I was on the other side of the table. I was the one telling the implementer what we wanted Vault to do and how we wanted it to work and how we wanted our workflows incorporated in there and what data we wanted brought over. So yeah, I suppose the tables have turned, just to use an expression, but yeah, now I'm on the other side of that table talking to customers. And yeah, again, myself and Maria collaborate plenty. When issues come up, we often get on to each other. Maria might reach out to me about Vault, and I'd equally reach out to her about the construction cloud, because we just know what each other is familiar with. And again, we've plenty of other technical agents in our office that we have to lean on for other reasons as well. You know, let's trial this, or let's test that, or this customer wants to know if this is possible or that's possible. And sometimes we just straight up have to troubleshoot and investigate and see if we can do it ourselves before we present it back, you know, to see if what they're actually asking for is feasible or doable. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose there will be times where you have to turn around and say, no, it's not doable. And, you know, at those moments, you know you've tried everything, you've tested everything, but sorry, you know, customer, we do not have the ability to do that, or the software at the moment has a limitation.
Yeah, but I think that's where you build a proper relationship with the customer, because, you know, like if you're honest and like say, no, sorry, it can't be done, you know, but look, I'll research. If there's something, I will come back to you, you know. And I think like it's just as important to build a good, honest relationship with the customer and know that they can come to you and get honest information and honest feedback, you know.
Honesty is the best policy. I love it. It really is. It really is. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. So the first part of the podcast, we've looked at AEC, MFG, we've looked at collaborating together and kind of the concerns that we might have with collaborating via, you know, closed environments or open environments via the cloud, etc. Coming up next on Optimize et al.
I suppose it's all about analysing the data, you know, and this company is a large company with multiple projects on the go at the one time. So to make it easier for them to analyse the data in the project, they are building a kind of internal AI platform like ChatGPT.
While I like your question, I don't think the goal was to get rid of people communicating with each other, but more to just make good use out of something they had.
I think it's definitely a tool that would help people with their job. So I was testing out one of these interior design AI tools. So, and I don't know whether it's because like all of these have come out since, or whether they were there already. And so you take a picture of the room. You pick the design idea that you want, so either Scandinavian, industrial type, you know, whatever type you want, and then you upload your photo and it gives you examples.
We talk about ChatGPT and AI. What influences do you think this is going to have on the younger generation?
It's the kids that actually go and use that and then spend a bit of time reviewing what has been written and changing it and modifying it that are going to get good results. But it's the kids that, you know, will all ask the same question and hand over the same, you know, paper. You know, they're going to be kind of called out. And if you walk into a town in a video game, again, I'm a big gamer, so I have some opinions, but like, say, you know, you have all these stationary characters that are always in the same place, and then you have other characters that walk, but they always follow a particular loop, and if you follow them, you'll find they actually circle and come back to the same point, and they just keep repeating that. But say you get AI involved there, next thing you have characters actually doing things themselves, and I just wonder what that's going to look like in the future.
But with Naviate, you can do it at a click of a button, and like, you know, that's essentially it. You're automating the tasks that you have to do every day, so you can actually spend more time designing. Just thinking of the Black Mirror, you know, that first episode where Joan is awful. Do you know? And like, I think, like, I love Black Mirror because it really makes you think. You know, because like the scenarios they have, they seem so far-fetched, but at the same time, you're thinking they could actually happen.
I've got 5 different films here named. Okay, and let's see if you can tell me what came out of those films.
Now that they've figured out how to fold screens, it's going to get to the point where you can everyone's going to have a small phone that can be folded out into a much bigger monitor, or like an iPad or something like that. Everyone just wants a Batmobile that you can just press the button on your watch and it appears in front of you, and you get in and it just takes you where you need to go. You know?
Oh, that would be lovely. That would be lovely.
I tell you, when those things arrive, I'll be brushing my teeth in the car on the way to work. You know?